Lee Robinson at American Sentinel K9. If you follow the paths of everybody else, you'll never achieve new ground. Alright, I'm 50 years old, and this video is going to be a lot different than any other video I've ever made in many ways, because I've never used notes in a video. And for the first time, you're going to see me with glasses just to occasionally check my notes. So I have made some notes here, and I started off this video with the statement that if you want to follow the same path as everyone else, you'll never reach new ground. If you want to get to where nobody else has gotten, then you have to be willing to do things that nobody else has done. I say that statement because I've seen the comment about game-bred Bandogs as being an impossibility, and frankly that's totally untrue. If that was true, the American Pit Bull Terrier would not even exist, because gameness is a genetic trait, and it was captured by the pit bull. And if it can be captured by the pit bull, it can also be captured by a Bandog breeding program if they make the right selection. So I am not the type of person that just follows everybody else's suit, and with that said, a lot of this video may include some content that I read, which is very atypical of me. I like to be spontaneous and just tell you what I think, but I wanted to really put together a well thought out response based on some observations that I've made over the many years of being involved with working Bandogs. Now, most people that are involved in Bandogs are only going to be around for a few years, so it doesn't really matter what they think. But every few years, you'll have one group fading out and another group fading in, and those two groups can influence each other. Very few programs have been here 20 years. We have. All right, so with that said, I'm going to offer some advice and input, and I want to talk about where we came from, where we are, and where we're going. And if you watch this video, I hope that you learn something. Now, next, not following the paths, the footprints of everybody else is part of who I am. All right, so I actually made a note here. I'll just read this first paragraph. It says, "This has been my mindset that has gotten me where I am." Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you should ignore the successes of others. You should certainly listen to the successes of others, especially great people who have achieved things that very few people have achieved. Listen to what they have to say. Don't neglect what they have to say, but also don't neglect your own instincts. You know, be willing to follow your own instincts. And this is something that I have done. I've followed my own instincts. One of the things that has caused me to gain many supporters as well as a few haters is I follow my own instincts. And by, I listen to the advice of people who have been there and done that, who have an education and have an experience. I hear what they have to say. But just because a person has been there and done that and has an education doesn't turn them into a god. Nobody's a god. All right, so we all have errors in our paths, in our journey of life. And at a person who is 50 years old, I really, no offense intended to people, but I don't have time to waste my life believing or entertaining nonsense. I have to do what I believe in. So when I hear something that just doesn't make sense, if it doesn't have evidence to support that, then I have to do what I believe. And as a result of that, I have gained some haters because there are some people out there that just follow the status quo. And I'm not going to follow the status quo. I'm going to look for education, I'm going to look for experience, I'm going to look for evidence, and I'm going to look for data and results and proof of concept. And because I like proof of concept, when you tell me that 2 + 2 is 3, I'm going to be like, well, that doesn't add up. And I'm going to throw my opinions out there, and that causes some people to get upset. It also gains a lot of support from people who are pursuing truth, but it will gain some resistance from those that just want you to follow them blindly. And I highly recommend that you don't follow people blindly. Make them provide you proof of concept. All right, next. Now, I said I don't yield my own beliefs to the advice of quote-unquote experts. I will do that if they have evidence and experience and proof of concept. But if they do not have proof of concept and they can't explain it, then I'm not going to yield my own opinions. See, my teachers are people that can do or explain what I cannot do or explain. So I recommend that you follow that. Take your teachers to be people that can do and explain what you cannot do and explain. All right, next. Now, just because I recommend that you follow these steps doesn't mean you should follow these steps. It's what I recommend, but you are responsible for your life. I'm 50 years old. If I'm lucky, I'll live another 50 years. If I'm lucky, I'll be active for 40 years. If I'm lucky, I'll be strong for 30 years. So, you know, we have a limited number of days. So you need to decide, well, how you're gonna live your life. This is your decision. I do not want to be responsible for how you choose to live your life. That's something that you have to accept as an adult. And with that said, I recommend that you follow these steps unless they go against your own personal beliefs. If they go against your personal beliefs, you do what you want to do. When it comes to people that are teaching you, listen to what they have to say, hold on to what sounds true and valid, but discard the rest. Now, when I say discard the rest, that doesn't mean really like throw it away. It means like set it to the side, okay? Because if you find out that you're wrong, you need to have access to that information that you discarded. You don't need to totally throw it away, so you just need to set it to the side and then go back and reevaluate what they told you. But at the same time, don't throw away your own beliefs unless you have evidence that your own beliefs are incorrect. And by evidence, I'm talking about education, experience, results, data, etc. Okay, I'm a scientist for a living. That's what I do. So we have to look at the evidence. So if you know your experience teaches you that you are wrong, then you need to go back and reevaluate what the experts have told you, what the educated have told you, what the evidence and the data and results have told you. So don't throw that information away. Next, the first thing I recommend is that you get an education. Now, I have a bachelor's in science and a master's in science, and my degrees are actually in animal sciences. Now, there's a number of people out there that really appreciate that, but there's also a number of people out there that say, oh, that's just book smarts, it doesn't mean anything. And I'm going to tell you who says it's book smarts. The people that don't have book smarts. Because anybody that has the book smarts knows that it has real value. Anybody that has book smarts and street smarts, if they have both, they know that both have real value. The only people that discredit book smarts are the people that don't have it. All right, so get a formal education. Go out and seek, go to a university, get a degree, go to a training facility that offers a school program, an educational program, and learn what the teachers and the mentors and the experienced people have to say on the topics that you wish to learn. Next, book smarts comes from history, experiment, results, experiment, results, data, and explanations. If people that don't have these things don't understand these things. So, this is important in how we make future decisions. Next, try to get the second thing. Not only is book smarts important, but the next thing you need to do is try to get some associations and experience with people who have experience. Go out and get in the trenches with those people if you can. And if you can't, listen to what they have to offer to you. They've been there, they've done that. Okay, so hear what those people have to say. Find educated breeders to work with. You don't have to agree with everything they say, okay? But listen to what they have to say, because they've been there and they've done that and they were successful. So a lot of the things that they are going to teach you are things that are valid and true. They may occasionally say something that you know is nonsense. But as long as they're honest with you, then you know that most of the stuff that they tell you is going to probably be valid. Now, I would avoid people that are dishonest, but that's another category that we're not going to get into. We're going to assume that you're dealing with honest people, okay? There are, unfortunately, some people that are dishonest. But listen to what they have to offer. I'm pleased to say that I've gotten to know rather well some of the best breeders, canine breeders in history. Now, the reason why I say that, there's no domesticated species that has been domesticated for longer than the dog. The dog is the oldest domesticated species. With that said, what breed of dog has been most scrutinized? We got to go with the American Pit Bull Terrier. The American Pit Bull Terrier has had harsher selection criteria than probably any other species or breed on the planet. Now, with that said, who are some of the best breeders in the American Pit Bull Terrier to ever exist? Well, obviously we have some old timers like Earl Tudor or Maurice Carver, but you and I are not able to talk to them. So we're going to look at the people that are in the modern era that we're still able to talk to. Now, with those people, we have Pat Patrick, the 2000 ADBA Dogman Hall of Fame. I'm pleased to say that I've gotten to know him rather well. Another breeder that has been around the game for a long time is going to be Madison Parker. Another individual that was a very successful breeder that, you know, passed away a few years ago was Bert Sorrells. And Bert Sorrells and Madison Parker and Pat Patrick are all breeders that I got to know really well. And I am pleased to say that I have the only Bandog program in the entire world that has ever been endorsed by any ADBA Dogman Hall of Fame, and Pat Patrick endorses us. Okay? Now, with that said, occasionally they may tell you some old wise tales. I said that already. It overshadows some general principles that they teach. Don't worry about the old wise tales that may be incorrect, okay? These guys were working off of outdated information. But at the same time, even though they were working with outdated information, they still had proof of concept. They still had the results that spoke for themselves. Nobody else has achieved what these people have achieved. Pat Patrick's program has influenced more programs than any other breeder in history. And he endorses our program. He's gotten 6 dogs from us, and he says that I am the only person of any other breed of dog that has ever produced dogs with the same level of drive and determination that his game dogs did for 40 years, displayed for 40 years. So they still know what it takes to succeed, and they did not get there by accident. Anyone can have a great litter from time to time, okay? There are some people out there that have produced, if you look at the American Pit Bull Terrier or any other breed of dog, there are people out there that have produced some great dogs from time to time, but who has done it consistently? And not very many people have done it consistently. It kind of cracks me up in the Bandog world that there's some people out there that have produced 1 or 2 good Bandogs, and they act like they're the new leader of the world, and it's very egotistical and premature for them to think that, because the thing is not can you produce a good dog, the thing is can you do it consistently, and can you do it over time, decade after decade. All right, these people that have been ADBA Dogman Hall of Fame have proven that they can succeed and do so consistently time and time again. They were great for a reason. Listen to what they have to offer, keep what is sound advice, and then set the rest aside for you to check on later on if you wish to. Next, learn canine behavior. Observe your dogs. Be willing to look at your dogs and see how sometimes they just act with each other. When nothing's going on, let them play with each other, observe them with each other, see how they interact, who starts what, who finishes what, their communications, who's independent, who's social, etc. When you leave the group, I like a dog that follows me around as an individual. I don't like a dog that wanders off in the woods and does its own thing. Necessarily, unless it likes to come back to me. If it likes to come back to me, then that's cool too. I do like a degree of independence, but not totally independent. If I wanted a totally independent dog, I would deal with something like a livestock guardian that's not bred to work with people, that are bred to work on their own. I want a dog that wants to work with me. So I want a degree of independence from its litter mates, but at the same time, I want a degree of dependence upon me. Not so tightly bonding that they're insecure, but still at the same time, likes to be with me. Okay, so observe your dogs and study their psychology, study their social behaviors. Now with that, I also recommend that you learn about classical conditioning, also called associative learning, which is Pavlov, and then also learn about V.F. Skinner and his concepts of operant conditioning, which is behavioral modification through reward and punishment. Learn these things, and this is going to be the key to your development as a trainer. Now, even if you don't want to be an advanced trainer, which, you know, being an advanced trainer is not my goal. I like to deal with a lot of raw genetics and assessment. Training is necessary for me to assess, but I don't have to train to compete. I'm training and assessing my dogs as I train, and we'll get back to that later. All right, so, because that's going to be a concept that I'm going to cover later in this video. Next, also learn about motivators like drive theory. Now, there are some people out there that disagree with drive theory. I kind of question it a little bit myself as well. However, that said, learning drive theory is still a benefit because it's going to help you in communication with other people who are trainers, and it's going to also help you describe the behaviors that you're seeing within your dogs as well as their responses. So, you know, when I say drive theory is debatable, there's no doubt that there are certain instincts that a canine has, such as defense drive, prey drive, sex drive, etc. But a little bit of that drive theory may be questionable, but I still recommend that you learn it. Next, learn about general psychology, but also learn about hormones. The hormones that an animal carries in its endocrine system will affect its behavior. When this dog gets an adrenaline response, it's going to affect its behavior. And that is something that we need to consider at a genetic level. A lot of people dismiss it as if it's temporary. Look, hormones, whether they be steroids or protein, there's two types of hormones, steroid and proteins, as well as receptors and inhibitors. All of these things have a genetic base. And so when you're breeding, you need to consider, how does a dog respond in a chaos? How does the drive influence its behavior? These are things that you need to consider, especially if you're going to pursue something known as gameness, okay? Because hormones plays a role in gameness, I guarantee you, okay? Next. Now, I may get more into the hormones aspect of it, like adrenaline, epinephrine, norepinephrine, etc., in some of my Patreon account, but I'm not going to do that in this video. That's not important in this video. Next, learn some genetics. The more you learn about genetics, the better. The basics is not always enough, and what I mean by that is there are a lot of traits that are not controlled by only one gene, or one loci. A loci is a place within the genome, and the purpose of this video is, again, not genetics. If you want to learn about genetics, check into my Patreon account. But many genes or many traits, I should say, are controlled by multiple loci, multiple alleles. They're called polygenic traits, quantitative traits. Traits that are not just black or white, but have many colors of gray. There's all kinds of variation in there. These traits are going to be polygenic or quantitative. And if you only know basic genetics, like how to solve a Punnett square, that's not going to help you a whole lot in your breeding program. Yeah, you'll be able to do some basic color stuff, but that's about all you're going to be able to do. When it comes to really improving your dogs, you need to take your knowledge of genetics to a higher level. All right, next. Population genetics, in my opinion, is even more important than individual canine genetics. So population genetics is going to be dealing with things like Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium equation. And to do that, you have to do the genetics of individuals within your population, and then combine the assessment of frequency of certain alleles in your population, and then measure those frequency of alleles and put them back into some calculations to see what's really going on in your population. Now, when you do that, you're able to measure what's called genetic drift. And if you need to modify this genetic drift at an accelerated rate, you might have to switch from genetic drift to actually gene flow by doing an outcross to another program and bringing in some genes that will really shift the allelic frequency in your population. And if you don't understand this genetics, then you will be left behind as a breeder. But like I said, to reach new ground, you have to be willing to do things that nobody else is willing to do. All these breeders want a lot of success, but they're not willing to put in the work or the money or the time and the effort. So it's going to take a lot of effort for you to obtain that success. And if you want it, I recommend that you get on it. All right, next. The most important concept that you can learn about to be a successful breeder is going to be natural selection. All right. The natural selection, I saw this video the other day where some people were talking about like puppy mill breeders, and they wanted to ridicule the breeder that puts puppies on the ground at a frequent rate. Now, if you want to be successful, you're going to have to put puppies on the ground at a frequent rate. Why? Because the first step of natural selection is the overproduction of offspring, right, boy? Now, overproduction sounds harsh. It sounds like a puppy mill concept. You're producing too many, you puppy mill, etc., etc. Look, it's as simple as this. Small high schools cannot compete at a football game with major high schools. Small colleges, junior colleges cannot compete with major colleges. Small teams cannot compete with major teams. Why? It's because of population size. The larger the gene pool, even if the frequency of the variation is the same. So let's say here's the, whoops, I'm going to draw something here. I did not draw it very well, but this is what's called a bell-shaped curve. My marker's going out on me, fading out on me. A bell-shaped curve. If this is a small population, what happens when you get a bigger population is the curve, whoops, I should go this way. The curve gets bigger, so it broadens out. And so that means you're going to have more individuals that are at a higher level. So the larger the population, even if the percentage of variation stays the same, the larger the population, the more extreme individuals that you have to choose from. So if you want to really reach new ground, you have to have these extreme individuals to choose from. This is why it's really difficult to succeed as a breeder if you only got like 3 dogs. You might need 30, 10 times that amount. All right, and if you don't have 30 yourself, you're going to need access to people who you can reliably count on to tell you the truth, to be honest, and to be there when you need them. You're going to need access to those 30 dogs. And if you don't have access to that, you got to be willing to travel the world. All right, we'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, so overproduction of offspring is necessary for that population for you to select from. The next thing, so you have overproduction of offspring, and then there's variation within the population. The third thing is going to be compete for resources. So these individuals have to compete for resources. That's what happens in the wild world, out in nature. But here in a domesticated species like a canine, they're not competing for resources because I'm going to feed him everything he needs, right? I'm going to give him all the water he needs. So how is he going to get that food and water? He's going to have to compete to serve my goals. And the ones that serve my goals the most are the ones that I'm going to feed and water and provide care for. And so that's their compete to service. So you have overproduction, variation, and compete to service. And with the compete to service, then I give them what they need and I'll allow them to breed. That's the fourth step of natural selection. So if you ridicule the person that's putting puppies on the ground, that's only because you don't understand the concepts of variation and having a larger gene pool to select from. I've seen some people that try to ridicule and say, oh, if the dog's missing one component, I'm not going to breed it. Bullcrap. I saw the same people also say that no dog is perfect. So if no dog is perfect, that means you'll never put a puppy on the ground. If you believe that you're going to only breed dogs that are perfect, but no dog is perfect, then you should never have a litter. That right there points at the hypocrisy of these people that are claiming to be your teachers. And a good teacher will tell you the truth. And the truth is, no dog is perfect. But the thing is, I don't want any major holes. Any weakness needs to be a minor weakness. And when I breed that individual, I'm not going to breed it with another dog that shares the same weakness. I'm going to make sure the mate is a strong in the area that a certain individual is a little bit weak in. Okay? Reptar, in my opinion, when it comes to performance, he's as good as it gets. I'd like to improve his structure a little bit aesthetically. I would like for him to be a little less leggy and a little bit more muscle mass. And you might think, well, you just said your dog's weak. Nope, this dog is probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest dog I have. He's a freaking beast. He caught his first wild pig when he was 3 months old. That's a fact. You can see the video on YouTube. It was a wild capture. It wasn't out in the woods, but it was a wild capture hog. And he caught it when he was 3 months old. And the dog is just 100% about anything. Put him in a truck, take him to town. I live way out in the country, and when we take him to town, he's explosive, he's totally good, totally comfortable, and never nervous about anything. Look at him, he totally wants my attention. He's a absolutely near perfect mentally family companion, guardian, and strong as all get out. Be prepared to invest. Let's go over to the picnic table. Now, when I say be prepared to invest, I'm going to tell you up front, I spend $80 every day for my dog business. And that $80 only covers dog food, routine medicine. It does not include vet bills for non-routine things such as, a surgery or an infection or an injury. It doesn't even cover any of that. It's just routine medicine. So we got $80 a day for food, routine medicine, my kennels, dog insurance, and water. That's $80 a day. If you include the dogs that I have purchased and vet bills, it's $100 a day. That means I spend about $35,000 a year to operate my canine business. Now, that's not your business, that's my business. But I say that because you have to be willing to invest. Not only the work, not only the education, not only the time, not only the land and the resources and much of your life, but you're also going to have to hit the pocketbook. All right? Now, and that's why my dogs cost as much as they do. Some people might say, well, I can buy a dog for less money. You're right, you can, but you're not going to get the investment that I have, okay? And when you get a dog from a program that has less of an investment, you may be getting a dog that also has less information and proof behind it. And I want my customers to get a dog that is well proven. All right, from a pedigree or a lineage that's well proven. Next, the next bit of advice that I have for you is do what you want to do. One of the things that has caused our program to get some haters is there's a lot of people out there that have their own goals, and then they want me, because they're interested in my program, to conform my goals to fit their agenda. I'm not going to change my goals to fit you, and I'm not going to do sport work to fit your agenda. See, my goal is not canine sports. My goal is to have a stable family companion guardian that is a game bred type mindset for protection work and also hog hunting, and then use that dog in an everyday application that I can, because I don't want to like have a dog for different applications. I like one dog to kind of like do everything. All right, now, so that's going to include not only protection work, it might include, obviously it's going to include companionship. The cool aspect of hog hunting is it's a really good test for a dog. I'm not going to say it's at the same level of game testing a dog that other type of game tests might be, but it is a step in the right direction. You're going to really push this dog potentially in a hot environment, an endurance environment, a dominated environment, a painful environment, a dehydrated environment. So you're starting to get into the point of game testing these dogs. It's just an introduction though. It kind of depends on how things go. Some hunts won't be a game test and some hunts will be. All right, now that said, people that say I've never competed in a sport, that's actually not true. Back in 2005, I actually did compete. I competed in a canine pro sports event. It's the only sport that I've ever competed in. It's the only time I went to an event and I didn't even know the rules. When I got there, I asked for a handbook and I learned the rules. And I was like, okay, we can do this. Because my dog knew sit, down, hill, stay, come, bite, and off. And off is my out command. So, and my guard command, or bite command is guard. So while other people have different commands, I've used my commands to be commands that I felt would be most suitable in court because my goal is protection. So I use guard, which is a defensive word, for my bite command, because I don't want my dog biting somebody unless it's a defensive type situation. That's going to be my best defense in court, is that I don't use an offensive type of mindset. Now, a lot of my dogs are not really advanced trained because I have too many dogs. I got like 25 dogs here, and I do this part-time, and when I retire I'll do this full-time. But between now and then, back then we had a dog that we had finished all the way and it knew all those commands. And when we competed, we entered a class and we were not allowed to compete against the military and police dogs. They had a separate division for military and police, and it was kind of weird because civilians could not compete in military and police, but police and military could compete in civilian if they wanted to. We entered the civilian class, we took first place. Didn't know the rules till we got there, we took first place. Canine Pro Sports 2005. Now, next, does it mean a whole lot? Maybe not. I'm not trying to say it does, but that's just a rebuttal to the people that say I've never done it, because I have. Pat Patrick, who knows game dogs about better than anybody, has endorsed my program and said our dogs are the only breed of dog that he's ever seen display the same level of determination that he saw in his game dogs that he produced for 40 years, winning the ADBA Dogman Hall of Fame Award in 2000. He's still wanting to get another dog from us after 6 dogs. He still likes our program enough to say that. He sent me his personal ADBA Dogman Hall of Fame plaque as a gift and a thank you for producing the dogs that I have produced. Next, Roger Abshire of US Canine Unlimited has obtained multiple dogs from us. He came here, he worked all the dogs in our program, he liked what he saw, and he gave me, it was used, but still it was in nice condition, an air-conditioned or climate-controlled Jones stainless steel dog trailer, 4-stall dog trailer, in exchange for 2 dogs. That was pretty cool, and we've done repeated business since then. He has nothing against sports, but he's a real world type of guy that deals with police, military, civilian, and business applications. So I appreciated that he was interested in our program enough to do that. Next, Paolo Chiappetta. Paolo Chiappetta is the first French ring decoy to obtain the French Ring 2 decoy certification here in the United States. He's bought multiple dogs from us, and the dogs that he obtained for us were not for competition in sports. They were for protection of people in his family. When it came to his family, he got dogs from us. You can verify that with him if you wish to do so. Next, Saquon Barkley got a couple of dogs from us, liked the dogs enough that he sent my son a football helmet and jersey. That was pretty cool. And the Prince of Malaysia has bought 10 dogs from us. So all of these things are things that I'm they were milestones in our breeding and business program that I thought were all pretty cool, and I appreciated their support when they did business with us. I've also sold a number of dogs to various police officers, canine handlers I'm talking about, not for police work, but for their family, and military people, they were canine handlers for their personal family. And another thing that's pretty cool, and this one actually is kind of a little bit more cool in my opinion, and that is prison guards that were canine handlers. And the reason why I say more cool is they're in a very combative situation. Why? Because they're in a concentrated high criminal environment. This is not regular society. This is a prison. And these people have, I've sold a couple of dogs to people who are canine handlers in prisons and have taken our dogs to their family, and that's pretty cool. Now, next. I mentioned those things because earlier I said something about having some haters. I find it funny and ironic that the people that want to discredit our program, they hold on to videos that in some cases are 15 years old. And as far as I know of, this small group of haters, which is going to remain unnamed because I don't think they're worthy of being named. Plus, I don't want to trash talk people like they're trying to trash talk me. I'm not going to mention their name. As far as I know, they've only got 3 videos of dogs that have not done well. And they've got many videos of dogs that have done very well. But guess which ones they share? They only share the videos of the 3 dogs that have not done well. Those videos are 5 years old, 10 years old, and 15 years old. Anybody that holds on to a video that's 15 years old in order to try to trash a 20-year-old program, when I've produced about 1,000 dogs over the 20 years, I would say you're looking pretty weak. Not only that, but if you want to look at the numbers, and this is going to be an egotistical statement, what I'm about to say. You don't have to agree with it. I'm just going to tell you what I believe. My program by itself has produced more protection band dogs and hog hunting band dogs than probably all of the other band dog programs in the world combined. That's what I believe. Okay? If you disagree with that, find the numbers. Oh, and these people that want to discredit our program, I don't find it one bit ironic that they're also interested in selling the band dogs from their own program. So really it's not about objectivity here. It's about trying to make themselves feel better, and the way that they promote their program is by trying to discredit programs that are more successful than they have been. Now, with all the stuff that I've mentioned, I want to say every program's going to have good or bad. And one of the things that's important to be long-term successful is to not only breed working individuals, but to also find which individuals produce at a high consistency. Now, when you're dealing with an individual that has been dishonest or has not been working their dogs, you might still find a high-performance individual, but you're probably going to sacrifice on a little bit on the consistency. And with that said, we're going to walk around the back and look at Lucky 7. All right, so this is my boy Lucky 7. Great dog. Phenomenal dog. Great worker. But unfortunately, when I produced this dog, the percentages in his litter were not as high as what I was used to with my other dogs. My American Sentinels were producing a higher percentage of working dogs than, in my opinion, the litter that produced him. But that said, he's a great dog. So as an individual, I had to accept him as a great dog. But what I'm about to tell you is going to be one of the things that separates a great breeder from a typical breeder. A lot of breeders believe in breeding best to best or type to type and pursuing the traits. And while there is some truth to that, you do that with a dog like this because he's a little bit of an outcross of Red Boy Jocko Jeep and some Cottingham and Crenshaw, which is, again, goes back to that same Red Boy type bloodline. You're going to find that because he's a little bit of an outcross, he's not as consistent as a producer as one might expect. So for that reason, I am focusing on correcting what I consider to be a flaw in this line. And performance is not his flaw. His performance is exceptional. But what I want to improve is the consistency of the gene pool. I want to improve the allelic frequency of the desired traits within him, because I can't change his alleles, but I can change the alleles in his offspring. And his alleles are not highly, he's not what I want to call a prepotent dog when it comes to producing a lot of performance offspring. So this is something that I'm going to do and to correct this before I take it into my American Sentinel program. And the way I'm going to do that is going to be through some line breeding. Why did this happen? This happened because of one person that I dealt with that didn't performance test their dogs, and they were dishonest about a few things. Now, that said, they were breeding on pedigree, and they bred some really great pedigrees. But you have to look at your animals. Remember the 4 steps of natural selection: overproduction, variation, competition, and then breeding the ones that work. He didn't compete with his animals, and since that was the 3rd step, and since he left that step out, he wasn't necessarily breeding the right individuals. And I had a little bit of a setback in dealing with that. But as good as this dog works, and he works great, the traits of performance are there. But I need to improve the allelic frequency of those traits within his gene pool. So how am I going to do that? All right, this is Komodo. Now, Komodo is Lucky 7's daughter. I bred Lucky 7, who was the best dog in his litter, to his best sister. And that's what made Komodo. And you'll have to excuse this wood here. If you notice, I'm blocking that metal, which is going to be replaced tomorrow, because this happened yesterday and today. Lucky 7 was in here for a minute because she just came into heat. He was jumping up and biting the roof. I've got it on video. I took him out, put her in here, and she was attacking the side. Both of these dogs are extremely high drive. The problem is not their abilities. The problem was, in this litter of this strain of dogs, you're getting about 25% of high drive dogs. I needed to improve that before I take it into my program. So I bred Lucky 7 to his sister to make Komodo, and now I'm going to take Lucky 7 back to Komodo to get a dog that's like Lucky 7, because it's inbred on Lucky 7 and his sister, focusing on Lucky 7's side, because I'm taking the daughter back to Lucky 7. Then I'm going to capture a lot of his good genes into a single individual that not only will display his behavior and traits and phenotype, but has him concentrated to reproduce those into the next generation. And that's the dog that will be bred into our American Sentinel program. A lot of people won't do that. They'll just take Lucky 7 straight into it, and they'll wonder why in 5 years their program's washed out, because they won't have the consistency. Okay, so next, let me go ahead and read a bit. I apologize for the reading. Like I said, this video is a little bit atypical for what I normally do. If you watch my videos, there's not a single video that I have where I'm reading off a piece of paper, but I wrote this today for the purpose of this video. Now, put your goals on paper. If you're not willing to put your goals on paper, I'll tell you, there was a study that showed 90% of the people that have goals don't write them down. All the people that obtain their goals put them on paper. That doesn't mean putting them on paper is going to guarantee that you obtain your goals, but it will guarantee that if you don't write them down, you're not going to obtain them. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you some of the things that I wrote down. We do this from time to time. I do it about once a year. The goal of the American Sentinel K9 is to be an extremely efficient, game-bred, athletic band dog that has the mindset, body type most suitable for to be a game-bred performance gladiator for the purpose of protection work or hog hunting. All right, and at the same time be stable-minded enough to be a family companion guardian. If you study most of the dogs in history, you'll notice that most of the top-tier protection dogs that actually work with people, I'm not talking about livestock guardians again, who do not work with people, but most of the top-tier protection dogs that work with people that have to be reasonably mobile are going to be in the 80-pound class. Now, I like a dog a little bit bigger than that because I'm not as mobile as like a police or military. So I'm going to, personally, I like the dogs in the 80 to 100-pound class. But if you're dealing with police and military, you're going to be more mobile. So you're going to go down a little smaller, maybe in the 60 to 75 pound class. But throughout history, the typical family companion guardian that really excels at what it does is going to be around 80 pounds or so. Now, because I want a gladiator, a true gladiator, a man stopper, I like to be about 80 to 100 pounds. Now, with that said, some people may think a dog in that range is not big enough to be a man stopper. However, I have to suggest two things in response to that. One, they're probably used to dogs that are severely overweight. Because if you have a 100-pound dog that's severely overweight, and that means you have an 80-pound dog that's tired. Now you might think, well, you just said a 100-pound dog. Well, you take an 80-pound dog and you add 20 pounds of fat to it, you have a 100-pound dog, but he's tired, so it doesn't count. When I say 80 to 100-pound dog, I'm talking about a fit athlete. That's a big dog. All right, now, the next thing I have to say is if you still disagree, then you probably have not done much protection work. Because anybody that does a lot of protection works knows the capabilities of even a good 60-pound dog. So, you know, you're talking about an 80-pound dog, you're definitely dealing with a man stopper. A 100-pound dog, and you're talking about a dog that's going to put you on the ground, especially when you're not wearing protective equipment. All right, so assuming the dog is bred right and kept fit and athletic. Now, next thing, large dogs are more prone to overheat, and they're generally less agile. And that's why I don't like to deal with dogs that are in the 120, 140 pound class. They just, to me, they're subpar. They get hot and they want to lay in the creek. Well, a dog that wants to lay in the creek when you've been on a hike is not going to really be able to be protective. A dog that wants to sit under the shade tree when you go jogging is not going to be a dog that you take jogging. So those dogs are not going to be able to be very protective in a do everything in your life type of scenario. And I want a dog that can be protective in any type of situation that I'm going to encounter. So I like 80 to 100 pound fit athlete. Now right now I've got some dogs that are 100, 110, 120, and 130 pounds. Okay, we have a female that is 110 pounds, 2 of them. And with that said, I feel like what we can do, because we have these females that are really giant and a couple of these males that are really big, I feel like I can add a little more game dog back into the program. And I'm not talking about just some game dog. It all starts here. They have to be directed by the mind, because if the mind is not willing, the body won't follow. All right, so you have to have that game bred mindset. Let's come over here. At the very beginning of the video, I said if you follow the path that everybody else has been, you're never gonna gain new ground, or something along those lines, okay? It's not like some quote that some philosopher wrote. This is just my opinion. You have to be willing to do things that nobody else is gonna be willing to do. You have to be willing to break new ground. Even Dr. Swinford, who bred some great dogs, only did it for 6 years, and he only had 2 to 3 generations. He was like in the middle of his beginning to create his 3rd generation, and his program washed out because he unfortunately passed away due to something that I'm not going to get into in this video. But with that said, if you're willing to study game dogs, you will find it's just a genetic trait. And if it's just a genetic trait that can produce these dogs, then that genetics can also be acquired into Bandogs. But you have to be willing to have the population size, do the breeding, and do the selections, and take and etc. over time. Game bred Bandogs can be made. There are people out there that think it can't be done, and that's because they've set up fences and boundaries and limitations for their own lives that they think other people should be restricted to. And it's up to you to decide whether they're right or not. And I think they're wrong. Why? Because the evidence is on my side. Gameness is a genetic trait, and if it can be captured into the American Pit Bull Terrier, it can be captured into the Bandog if you're willing to do your work. You have to find the right dogs. And that's why I came over to my boy Frankie here. Frankie is probably the best game bred dog that I've ever owned in my life. All right, be good, bud. Be good. Be good. All right, he's a super heavy bred Sorrells dog. My whole program is founded upon the Sorrells bloodline. Performance proven dog. Game bred Bandogs can be made. Some people out there think it can't be done, but anyone that says that has a limited mindset. If it is possible to catch the genes for the American Pit Bull Terrier that create gameness, then it is also possible to do the same thing for the Bandog. Anybody that says it's not doesn't understand science. All right, genetics, population size, performance-based selection, and then finding the individuals that have excelled in the performance is all it takes. And you do that and combine it with time, and you will be successful in producing game-bred Bandogs. Now, one of the things that benefits our program is I can house as many as 31 dogs in kennels individually when we finish our kennels. Up to this point, I've been able to house and manage about 20 to 25 dogs without any problems. Over that, we get to some problems on trying to juggle litters and prospects and where we're going to place them. But we have the facilities to have a large population, and that's a huge benefit. I prefer to not keep my max because I want to have room for 6 to 8 prospects and also a few kennels for puppies. So if you take 31 plus I have 5 chain spots, that puts me at a max capacity of 36 dogs. I don't want 36 dogs because I need room for prospects and puppies. So I really like to have a max out adult capacity of about 20. Then I have a friend, Keaton, who also has a few dogs, like 7 dogs himself, and he's an extension of our program. Next, recently I was a bit humored about a person, I'm not going to mention the names because this is a negative. There was a person that produced an F1 cross. An F1 means a first generation cross. And after they produced that dog, they trained that dog and did reasonably well with it in protection sports. And now some people are out there saying they have the best Bandog program in the world. And honestly, it cracks me up because the only people that of course say that are their friends. That's it. Nobody else says it. It's just their friends. Now, how naive and egotistical can you be? I'm going to explain how they produced this F1 dog. They met and fell in love, and they trained at the same place. They talked about the importance of going out and finding great dogs before you breed, and that a dog has to be perfect, and if it has any flaws, don't breed it. Meanwhile, they said perfect dogs don't exist. So that means that a dog had a flaw unless it was perfect, which would be hypocrisy because that's impossible. What did they do? They didn't go find any dogs to breed. They bred their dogs together. They made a dog, but because they're in a training club, they've been able to enhance that dog's potential and allow it to reach its maximum abilities. And that's great, as long as they're honest about what they do. And that's the problem. These people are trying to now say they have the best Bandog program in the world when they basically have an F1 dog, a first generation dog. Let's see where you are in 5 or 10 years and see what you've done. And not only then, but are you actually seeking dogs like this? I had somebody ask me, why did I breed this dog so much lately? I'll come back to that in just a bit. So, next, when people make their selections so easily as I breed my dog with my girlfriend's dog or my wife's dog, you didn't really do your homework. And if it was that easy, then game-bred Bandogs would already exist. Already. Now, the truth is they already do exist because I've made them, but that's another story. Now next, to produce game-bred Bandogs, one has to be willing to use the game-bred American Pit Bull Terrier. And don't for 1 minute think that being game-bred is enough. They have to not only be game-bred, they have to be performance tested, and not only performance proven, and not only game-bred, but come from programs where they have done that consistently time and time again, and that's where Frankie comes from. All right? And that's also where Suki comes from. All right? And that's also where my Sorrells Captain Skip blood that started me 20 years ago came from. That's also where Snaps, my Hamlin's bred dog, came from. All right, but that's another issue. Don't think that all game-bred American Pit Bull Terriers are game. That's not true. Far more American Pit Bull Terriers are coals, or curs. Coals means a dog that should not be used. A cur means a dog that quits. Any dog that's a cur is a coal when it comes to the American Pit Bull Terrier. All right, far more of them are curs than are game. And if you think otherwise, that means you don't really understand what game means. Now next, you need a dog that's proven to work, that comes from a working program, that is known from a line with high percentages. And that's what my boy Frankie here is from. Very few people have a source of true game-bred dogs. And there's a lot of people that are using just like Red Boy Jocko Jeep Mayday bred stuff, which I have some of that, but unfortunately they're getting it from any Tom, Dick, and Harry because it's the flavor of the month and they're not really performance tested. They're relying on Mayday's legacy from decades ago, even though the dogs between him and now haven't done anything. And that's one of the things that's different. Our dogs are not only have a tremendous pedigree, they also have a tremendous working ability. Proper selection takes time, research, money, testing, work, and developing connections. All of this is necessary to building one's foundation. A dog we have been using a lot lately is Frankie Bomp, and that's why I came over here. And you notice we haven't even really toured the American Sentinels, but we will before this video's over. Proved to be a deep game dog. He actually not only comes from that line, he's actually displayed those traits himself. So, and comes from a lineage of dogs that do the same. We bred him to a female American Pit Bull Terrier, Suki, who's bred very similar to him, and we also bred him to 3 Bandogs. Now we're going to take those 3 Bandogs, Pele, Rogue, and Onyx, that are all been bred to Frankie, and we're going to take the offspring out of that back to each other, and we're going to develop a Frankie Bomp line of American Sentinels, and those dogs will be beneficial to in our years to come. Breeding is a continual refinement. What I mean by that is you always have to refine and improve the traits that may be that may need to be enhanced in some way or another. Now, obviously, by breeding Frankie Bomp to these Bandogs, we're going to sacrifice some size because those dogs are not purebred Mastiffs. So we're going to sacrifice a little bit of size. I'm not worried about that. I've got some big dogs in my pedigree already. They kind of need to be downsized a little bit anyway. So when they meet in the middle with a little bit extra dose of a high quality proven American Pit Bull Terrier, we will be able to address that. And if we get a little smaller than we need to be, it's okay. I've got some big dogs that are really performing at a very high standard that we can use those to get us back to where I want to be, which is the 80 to 100 pound range. All right, so not a big deal. We have some larger dogs like Justice, Wrecker, Reptar, Valkyrie, Widow, who produces very big, Onyx, and in the time we'll see Rogue. I'm sure she's going to do fine. And then I have 2 young females that are double bred on Wrecker, which is the biggest dog I own. That I'm sure that'll be fine as well. So we'll be able to address that. All these dogs are going to be tested for drive, nerve, structure, cleanliness, malleability, which means trainability, power, stamina. And stamina is a combination of respiratory and cardiovascular and endocrine. And then we're also going to have to look at their heat tolerance. We're going to have to deal with their agility, their ability, their health. We health test. We do the x-rays on every dog that we breed. And the broader aspects in terms of the performance testing during protection work and hog catch work in both a raw state, which is not trained, and then also in a trained state. The final product should be a dog that's very much like my boy Scratch. We're gonna go look at Betty Crocker first because she's over here by us, and then we'll go up to the kennels and give you an idea of what the final product should look and behave like. Now, with that said, obviously we're not doing training right now, so you're not going to be able to see their behavior. You're just going to see their looks. This female right here, Widow, she produces a lot of size. This is Betty Crocker. She weighs about 75 pounds, okay? That dog is built like a brick house. A dog like that will stop a man. All right, this dog right here, Scratch. This is the goal of our program. This dog is as intense as any Malinois. Okay, the dog is freaking through the roof. He's built just right. Beautiful structure, super clean. That's our final product goal. Next, Machete. Another phenomenal dog. Perfectly balanced. Strong as an ox. Super intelligent. We're going to try this again, y'all, because Lady Smith's barking like a crazy fool. I threw her some leaves thinking that would distract her. So this is what the final product should be. This is what the final product should be. This is Scratch. Super high drive. Lady Smith wants to say hi. Hey, lady. So just point at Scratch while I talk. So Scratch is near perfection. I mean, super high drive, beautiful body. Has got as much drive as a Malinois, confidence through the roof, endurance for days. This dog is everything I want from a dog. All right, that's what I want. Machete, same way. Lady Smith, young dog, same way. From here over, no refinement needed. Okay, for the most part. Glad, good dog. This is Patches, good dog. She's double bred. Hey, hey. Patches, right here, is double bred on record. She was produced from a grandfather-granddaughter breeding. All right, so she's going to be a pretty big female, probably 90 pounds full grown. This is Jazz, a super high intense dog. Back up a little bit. What's up, Jazz? Watch her explosiveness. Even though she's a super explosive, she's also superb with the family. This is Rihanna. Rihanna's a young dog. She's about 10 months old. She's out of Justice and Preacher Girl. Not my favorite looking dog in some ways. I think she's a little bit ugly, to be honest with you. But she's got a nice rear quarter, and she's got drive and nerves for days. And her dad is a phenomenal producer. Then we got the giant dog, Wrecker. A lot of people absolutely love Wrecker. He's 130 pounds, 125 to 130 pounds. And then we have Phoenix in here with him. He looks like a dwarf next to him because he's so big, but even she's about 80 pounds. Come on, girl. Here you can see how big he actually is. This dog is a beast, okay? And he's a great producer. He's honestly not my best working dog. He's more prone to overheat. All right, this is our other double bred Wrecker female. And with this dog, if I have any small dogs, small males, I'll be able to put them right with her. Vlad's a good candidate for that, or anything off of Frankie Bomp's good candidate for that. Her drives and comments, she's only 6 months old. All right, 6.5 months old, and she's built like a brick. So when this dog is 18 months old, given her drives and confidence, I know this dog's gonna be a winner. 4 socks. Now this is Onyx. She's in heat right now. This is the female that I was talking about that we were breeding with Frankie Bomp. Everybody knows Onyx. Okay, so let me close up. So, enclosure. So now you've seen a lot. Oh no, we didn't show you Halo. Let's go around and look at Halo, because Halo's a dog. Because Halo's a dog that also represents what my final goals are in terms of phenotype. But phenotype comes second to performance. It's got to be about performance first. This is Halo, another dog that is along the lines of what I envision for our future. Nice rear quarters, super thick back legs, prey drive through the roof, super intelligent, and bred with a phenomenal pedigree that matches her performance. One of my best producing females. She's the mother of Scratch. She's also the mother of Bumper. Bumper and Scratch, they're full siblings. Bumper, of course, is younger, a year and something younger, and super smart, super intelligent, great nerves, high drive dog, be competitive with a Malinois in terms of drive goes, but at the same time, super affectionate with the family. Another one of Halo's offspring is Mystique, but Bumper and Scratch are both out of Justice. This dog here, Mystique, is out of Halo and Reptar. So this is another daughter of Halo. This is a great final product looking dog. Drive for days, nerves for days, confidence for days, endurance for days, power. Come here, girl. Come here, girl. Good girl. Look at the back legs on that dog. Super strong. Another super well-bred dog. Super powerful. This is the direction that I want. How did I get there? Well, that's because we took our biggest dogs back to game-bred dogs, and we ended up with this. And our biggest dogs already had a high degree of game-bred American Pit Bull Terrier in them. This is how we made the American Sentinel. The Bandogs bred to catch man or beast. Another super great prospect. This is ASC's Silly Billy. She's out of Vlad, bred back to Phoenix. And she's young. She's only like 13 weeks old. And she's going to be phenomenal when she gets full grown. So now we're done discussing the dogs. Let's go back to the picnic table. We're going to close out with me reading these last 2 paragraphs because I wrote down basically what my final product goal is. And I've discussed where we came from and where we are. So now let me discuss where we're going. All right, the final product of the American Sentinel K9 are dogs that are very much like Scratch, Halo, Betty Crocker, Mystique, Jackson, Boss. These are my favorite, some of my favorite dogs throughout history when it comes to both performance and phenotype. There's many, many, many more dogs that I can name if we only talk about performance, because performance has always been my #1 criteria. And if we just stick with one criteria, you have a larger population of individuals that meet that criteria. Justice, Reptar, Preacher Man, etc., etc. Okay, Lynn, Blue Jean, I could go on and on, Tiggy, on and on. Okay, about 100 dogs, I'm sure, if not more than that. But that would be pointless, so we're not gonna do that. But these dogs that I just named here, Scratch, Halo, Betty Crocker, Mystique, Jackson, Boss, these dogs not only have the performance aspects, but they also have that lean body type of efficiency where they have a perfect balance of power, agility, stamina, and things like that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our larger dogs that are still very protective and efficient and good, and we're going to increase the game blood a little bit in some of those dogs. And that's why I've used Frankie so much lately. All right, because unlike most Bandog programs that want to improve the Mastiff, my Bandog program is a little bit different. The American Sentinel is kind of like improving the Pit Bull Terrier, because what I want to do about the Pit Bull is make it bigger and more loyal and protective. Because most Pit Bulls kind of love everybody. There are some Pit Bulls out there that are man biters that bite everybody. Those aren't any good either. I want a dog that's stable with my family and loyal to my family and not friendly to strangers, but also big enough that you can't overpower it like a 40-pound Pit Bull. So I like those 80 to 100-pound class dogs that have that same game mindset. Right? So this is a huge undertaking, a very expensive, time-consuming, educated, work-required, selective breeding type of undertaking. So we're going to try to balance power, endurance, agility, durability, stamina, and the desire to finish what they start when it comes to engaging in some sort of combative challenge, whether it be protection work or hog hunting. It may sound like I'm trying to say that my dogs are perfect all across the board, and I don't want to come off that way. Don't let this video mislead you into thinking that every dog we produce works out, because that's simply not the case. Anybody that says all their dogs work out is a person with very low standards. We did not get to where we are by having low standards. While there's some people out there that get a dog that maybe an average dog from us and they're very happy with it, that's cool. I'm not satisfied with average dogs. I want apex, cream of the crop type dogs. Even my haters, none of my haters have ever been able to discredit any dog that I've ever endorsed. They just can't, because the dogs that I endorse deliver very high performance. Okay? Now, so it isn't realistic to say that every dog's gonna work out. Programs that are embarrassed by 1 or 2 dogs that don't work out are, in my opinion, are programs that try to hide the truth, because any program that is honest knows that you're going to have some dogs that don't work out. That's just part of life. All right, so I don't want to mislead you, because that's not who I am, that's not me. I'm going to tell you flat out, there's going to be some disappointments along the way. But with that said, I really do believe, with 100% sincerity, that the percentages from our program vastly exceeds the percentages of success from any other Bandog program in the world. We have the years, we have the numbers, we have the percentages that illustrate our success. So you don't have to take me at my word, just do your research and you'll find out what I'm telling you is true. Next, all that is going to cost us time, money, work, and education, and we will be here for as long as I'm able to do this. So in 20 years, I hope to still be doing the same thing. So that's really all I had to say, which I know this video is long as all get out. Never made a video this long. Never made a video with a bit of a script to guide my thoughts. But, you know, sometimes we want to really explain where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. And even if you don't like Bandogs, there's probably a lot of content in this video that you might find to be beneficial. So with that said, Lee Robinson from American Sentinel K9 signing out. Y'all have a blessed day.